This is Catherine Hallam of Videology, an ad tech firm operating in the video space, kind of aggregating a lot of different services. And hopefully that's a nice segue from Nielsen in many ways, because I think Videology is a key partner in the cross-media campaign ratings.
Yeah, I mean, our positioning is very much around audience targeting. So we bring audience and the optimization to reach that audience that's most applicable for the campaign of the aims of the end advertiser. So we take a very agnostic approach to data in a way, in terms of bringing in as much different variety of data that will meet that campaign aim. And then it's important for us to try and look at consistency of data from the targeting through to the measurement at the end of the campaign. So with Nielsen's product, for example, when they brought in the measurement of the GRPs for age and gender, it was very important to us that we were able to bring in consistent targeting at the start of it, because the biggest challenge you could see in the market would be that you're using a lot of third-party data for targeting, and in the eyes of somebody, the age and gender of a person that's been collected through a cookie tracking online could be different to how it is viewed from the Facebook panel or the ComScore panel, for example. So I think that the important for us was to be able to develop that optimization towards that, so that your targeting is most consistent with the measurement that you're then bringing, and therefore best hitting the agencies and the campaign aims for them.
So I think you used to work at Experian, is that right?
I did indeed,
if
yes.
anyone should know data, you should know data. And you
Yeah.
probably know my credit score.
I wouldn't be able to disclose that, definitely not.
But when
yeah,
it comes
9
to
years.
when it comes to advertisers, what do you think are the key general philosophies that advertisers should apply in regards to data when looking at planning the next campaign?
Yeah. So I think it's really important that they look at the aim of their campaign and what it's trying to achieve in terms of the stage of the campaign in the customer lifecycle funnel. So although VOD is very much primarily been age and gender targeted, what we've seen in the US is, and it's starting to happen here as well, is that now up to it's maybe a maximum of 60% of campaigns only use age and gender, and we're getting far more diversification of targeting. So behavioural data, as we were mentioning before, is going to become equally as important. So it's putting the right types of data into the campaigns at the stage of the funnel. So if you're doing awareness, then yes, age, gender, demographics, whether you've got households with children, that's very relevant. But then that person will move down that funnel, and there's no reason that the targeting of an interest or moving through to intent or even purchase-based segments will start to play a role. And we've really seen that diversification in the US, and we know that uplift of data in campaigns does bring results. So we've seen like 76% uplift in brand recall from using data in campaigns, but then that also does relate to sales and offline sales at the bottom of the funnel as well. We've seen uplift in 47% uplift in sales of automotives, for example, when you're looking at from the impact of a VOD campaign. So data it's about positioning it at the right stage of the customer funnel for whatever the campaign aims are.
So this brings us on to return on investment, and within Videology, I believe you're the ROI specialist. And so when we think about ROI across various kinds of online marketing, it's all at a different point on the spectrum depending on the channel you use. So I guess like social media marketing, infamously ROI is the holy grail, but isn't necessarily achievable, some might say. What do you think is the achievableness of ROI when it comes to video advertising?
So I think the traditional putting VOD as an awareness is still going to be very strong, but what we've seen in the US in particular, and we're developing similar products here in the UK, is that actually VOD can have an impact on that purchase, that driving people to purchase. So by partnering with, and it's not just online purchase either, I think the important thing here is that the awareness and following people through to that purchase offline is significant. So in the US, they partner with, for retail providers, measuring, uplift in their store basket values would be through somebody like MasterCard. in also using Kantar and other panel based that track purchase behaviours, starting to talk to dunnhumby and people like that have loyalty supermarket transactions. So it actually will lead to an uplift. And as I mentioned before, this type of, it's actually a razor advert that's been seen in the US. They proved that through a combination of demographic and purchase-based targeting, they saw a 63% increase in sales value. So the ROI is being proved if that's an uplift compared to those that weren't exposed to VOD.
So, I mean, we live in an age of programmatic bad buying and a guaranteed outcome from spend. So in that sense, I mean, it may be puritanical to say it, but does that make brand uplift not even look like true ROI when considered against like purchase? Yep.
I think it's coming into the attribution question. So even if a sale comes a little bit later, it's going to be difficult to guarantee a sale from something that is very demographically targeted. However, I think it will start to, as brands become more sophisticated about the journey of that customer and the contact points that customer has received. We've been doing analysis on what happens when you show consistent targeting on multi-formats and what uplifts you can see. So as you'd expect, when you precede a display advert by a VOD advert, you do see a significant uplift in that click-through rate and then also the viewing through to a landing and subsequent product page. So I think it will be around individual advertisers being able to track what works best for their product in terms of the contact strategy across those channels.
One of the things we're talking about here today is the cross-platform video consumption and video ad consumption reality. But and you are measuring each of those. So it's maybe facile to ask, but which of those channels is most effective?
I think it will always be in the eye of the aim of the campaign. So it may differ for different advertisers depending upon what their engagement with the channels would be. I think typically you might say that mobile would still drive awareness, but it might not be as a deeper engagement with the consumer. They may be doing something a lot more speedy and reactive, so it might be awareness driving through to an interest. So I think the channels will each play their own role in bringing value to the advertiser's messaging, and it's important to consider the aim of that messaging and use the channels appropriately, with ideally consistent messaging to your audience as you go through, and Holy Grail will be to join those channels together.
So let's open it out first to Andrew Bradford from Nielsen. So should online pre-rolls, let's say, be considered an incremental additional revenue in the chain or merely part of?
I think that's down to the, in some sense, I think it's down to the evaluation of the buyer. I think that it feels to me like we are in a bit of a space in this market where there's almost an assumption that any video campaign will add incremental reach to a TV schedule. And I'm not sure if that is always true. So Simon Dalglish gave a good example with earlier when he was talking about one of their recent TV episodes where actually they had huge TV audience and they had very, very small digital audience. Now, in that circumstance, with that particular target audience, I think it would be difficult to envisage incremental reach. However, he also said that there are certain demographics where they see much higher levels of online usage. 16 to 34-year-old men, for instance. If you had a medium-weight TV campaign with a fairly heavyweight online campaign, it's perfectly clear that we would probably expect to see incremental reach. So I think it will differ by demographic and by the relative weights of the TV and online schedule. I think the other thing to bear in mind here is that even if a campaign does not generate incremental reach, the question for the planner will still be, well, what did it do to the frequency distribution amongst the demographic? Or did we reach a different demographic in online than we actually hit with the television piece? And then that is very useful to inform the context behind some of the resonance measures around brand uplift or whatever else it is, and to have a much better understanding. So I think it's quite a complicated picture.
Eamon Tuhami, so the video pre-roll is a reasonably established ad format medium now, but I've seen a couple of things recently within the pre-roll construct that point to maybe kind of like a new anti-establishment format within that. So I've seen, so YouTube has the select your own ad format, which seems a concession to the reality that maybe users want more choice than just a single pre-roll. And this week I've seen a genius VW Beetle pre-roll ad campaign which acknowledges the viewer's own frustration and appears to self-time out and self-click on the skip ad button, thereby pleasing the viewer. But what does that say about the state of pre-roll?
Well, I think it's about how much of that is a fad, how much of that is really making a difference to a consumer. I think, we heard it earlier, online has a fixation with technology and new formats and the latest thing. I think ultimately, does that work because the consumer, is engaging, or is it not working because they're not targeting more accurately from a data point of view? I think it's fascinating when you look at a Videology, for example, sucking in lots of different data sources. And it's not just third-party data online, it's about the purchase intent data. So I exist not just as an online person, I don't exist as an offline person, I am a person. I'd love to have a t-shirt that says I'm not a cookie, I'm a person. And it's about understanding what the aim of that campaign is ultimately. And if that campaign, a good example would be iPad. On day one, no one was on searching for iPad because they didn't know what iPad was. Apple created a brand new category. So you have to educate before then you're going to do other activity and other messaging through that funnel. For me, it's about joining it up. Whether you're using the Beetle example in a very quirky ad format, or you're using your more established pre-roll execution, I think it depends what you're trying to do at that point in time to the consumer.